All right, welcome back to the Arise with Anita podcast. If you're new here, this is your space, not for a perfect woman, not for someone who's interested in performative healing, but for the woman who is done waiting and is ready to rise boldly, softly, fully. And if you've been here before, you already know this is where healing becomes embodiment and alignment becomes the action. And this one is for the woman who's rebuilding herself, brick by sacred brick, the one navigating grief, responsibility, ambition, all while trying to alchemize a vision from it all. So let's dive in. Where I've been, if you didn't hear episode 1, I lightly touched on where I was in the last year. But if you didn't, welcome again. This past year broke me in ways I hadn't expected. There was family scares that shook my foundation, made me question the medical system within our Western society. And honestly, my body hit its own version of burnout. And if I'm being honest as well and transparent, there was moments where my mind had, well, she wondered. And the reason I'm telling you this is what really got me back to being able to find myself again was the very tools and the teachings that I've became so passionate about learning. And honestly, there were days during that period where I woke up in silence and thought, what am I even doing anymore? There was tears, moments where I felt like everyone else was flying and having the time of their lives. And I was still in survival. But looking back, I realized I was actually in a process of purification. And pretty much everything that was falling apart at that point was either making space for what's being built or something better. And honestly, silence isn't a setback, it's often the womb of your next identity. Throughout that entire process, I found myself really having to rely on the tools that I've been learning and apply them in my everyday life, from incantations to watching my vision board, meditating, priming my brain, taking back full control and ownership of what was happening in my own life to the best of my abilities. So I realized throughout that entire process that it doesn't matter how bad things are looking. I mean, I did lightly touch on it, but there was a period where things were one thing after another for me. I mean, my grandpa was in and out of the hospital with liver failure and a cancer scare. I broke my right hand, which, fun fact, I'm right hand dominant. So I really had to learn how to become resourceful at a whole new level in order to survive that period. And while I knew it was not a forever, I did have these moments that trickled in that doubt and the questioning of why is this happening to me? And for the most of you, you know that Tony Robbins is a huge influence on my life. And he always says, how can you look at life like it's happening for you, not to you? And what I realized during that process was life wasn't in fact happening to me. It was happening for me to become more resourceful, to become more convicted in the belief of these tools and how they can really shift a life if you just apply them properly, and how the mind is such a beautiful thing if used correctly, that you can literally transform healing, transform your own financial reality. You can transform the way your life looks, even in the thick of what life looks like, things going wrong. So let's talk about what it really looks like to become her. Everyone shows the glow up, but no one really shows the gut-wrenching moments of becoming. The nights that you're not feeling like you're enough, the moments that you start to self-sabotage and you can't explain it, the days where no one claps and you just keep going anyway. You think becoming her is about doing more, but honestly, I found that it's really about unbecoming and unlearning everything that you were taught and really diving into releasing what isn't actually you. So I had to stop waiting for permission to be liked, to be validated, to be understood, to share my own story. And I had to start choosing myself and the raw, the real, and even in the resistance, because I think one thing most people don't talk about in terms of resistance is how a lot of times on that other side of the resistance that you're facing is the beauty. That's where your outcome is. That's where, when you push past the resistance, you find that your life starts to unfold. And that was honestly some of the most powerful transformations I've walked through. I think prior to last year, my story was so set on one version of my healing journey. And while that's beautiful, and my healing tools really had helped me with them, I realized that I still hadn't had the story of overcoming really life's challenges. I mean, last year was the first year that I really had to deal with family and having a loved one who had such an impact on me growing up, and seeing him deteriorate the way he was in a very rapid speed. And while I'm not going to go into too much of the details with my grandpa's health issues, what I will say was, if it wasn't for the fact that I've been in the community of learning about self-healing, I don't know if when we got the initial results that he had, if I would have been so gung-ho that we could have helped heal him. And if I would have really believed at that point that self-healing was a thing. But I had heard so many stories that I already had cultivated the belief, and I was able to transmit that belief onto those who were impacted by it. So for me, it really taught me so much about how the power of belief is really a game changer in terms of, it doesn't matter if it's finances or your health or your relationships. When you believe that things will be working out, a lot of times, by the grace of God, you find that they do. So let's go ahead and dive into manifestation, which is a key component of my teachings and also a key component of just life itself. I think a lot of people don't really realize that either which way, whether you're manifesting the good or the bad, you're manifesting all the time. So let's just have a real conversation on manifestation real quick. It's not always just the vision boards and the scripting. It's not thinking it and then it just comes to you. It's identity first, energy second, action third. So a lot of times in the manifestation community, I actually tend to hear that it's all about the energy, or you can just visualize it and it'll come to fruition. But if I'm being honest, in my case, it was my sacred rituals that really saved me. It was making sure I primed and meditated every morning. It was my little daily walks when I could. It was making sure I was listening to things that fed my brain not only hope, but also reminded me that there's more to life. So, podcasts, audiobooks, different courses. It was incantations that were reprogramming my frequency as well as the frequency that my grandfather was in. So, a fun little fact was when he was diagnosed with what they were anticipating as stage 3 or stage 4 cancer. And up until they biopsied him, they were not sure which of it was. But based on his condition, they were 100% sure that it was pretty bad. I was having us walk around and literally chant, I am healthy, I am strong, and having him really visualize that he's healthy, he's strong, his body is healing. And that even looked like relying on prayer and just using as much energy towards that belief that you can recover from something so horrid. And the beautiful part was when they did finally do the biopsy, his results were absolutely clear, and he's healthy and he is strong, and he is back to the man that I love and know him to be. And that is not to say that we healed solely off of energy work, but I do believe it had a high, high probability that's what really reversed it for him. It was a combination of incantations and really starting to look at what he ate that really helped, and also creating a vision for his life, seeing grandkids, potentially traveling. And one thing I do want to touch on, just generally speaking, if we don't have a vision of what it is we're attaining, it's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day life that we end up losing sight of our dreams and our goals. And if you're not growing, you're slowly losing a part of yourself. So I'll be honest, I stopped performing the acts and really started anchoring them within myself. And I made decisions from a version of me that it was about who I was becoming and who I was serving, not from the place of where I had been or what my current reality in that moment looked like. So that's when things started to shift and healing became a possibility. And I started seeing in my own life that things were starting to shift and momentum was being built because I stopped forcing the results, but because I started becoming the person who could hold them. And I think there's such beauty in just the overarching way of how life has kind of unfolded. And I really realized during that point that even the mess can become the message if you allow it to. And so I just really wanted to take this time to share parts of that story, not because I want the credit or if the one thing I can say that I really hope you hear my heart on this is if you're going through a tough time right now, and what I was calling last year was my own personal winter. If you're going through a tough time right now, you have to trust that it's not always where you're going to stay, but rather it's helping you build for something more. And I realized through that experience and through surrounding myself with the right people that we all start from somewhere. And we all have our version of being broke or being broken to having that life and that shift that finally changes everything. So these are the things I'm going to be really diving so deep on within this podcast, and I'm so excited to share. because I think that these stories are what really separates me is I've seen manifestation in all different forms in my own life, and I'm still continuing to work with this tool to really embody more of a dream life, and I'm so incredibly proud of what I've built. But for a long time, I was really holding back a little bit. And you know what no one talks about is the trauma of feeling like you want to be seen. But at the same time, you end up holding yourself back. So you're basically having the fear of being seen. And most people think it's just about judgment or rejection. But what if it's actually the fear of being exposed? So I've spent years shrinking myself, hiding my light a little bit. Not because I didn't want the success, but because I didn't feel safe sharing my truth and having it really out there. And if I'm being honest, there are points when I was growing up feeling unseen, unchosen. And while I craved the visibility, it felt dangerous. So I was naturally afraid of it. But hiding me was actually starting to cost me. It was suffocating my gifts. It was suffocating the impact I can be making. And now I'm just showing up, barefaced or with a full face, heart open, with my story being written, because her doesn't shrink for a comfort, at least not anymore. And actually, while I'm on it, her, when I said that, was not just me speaking in third person, but actually what I've found this last year is H.E.R. And it stands for heal, embody, rise. And yes, this will be made into a coaching program and eventually a course. So keep an eye out for that. So, to any woman who's listening right now, I see you. And you're doing the best with what you've got. You're trying to heal yourself. You want to build, or you have built, and you're serving. Sometimes you feel like you're surviving and you're still smiling. And I want you to know you are not behind. And actually, while I'm on this note, I had a beautiful experience. And if I take you back to my 30th birthday just a couple of months ago, 3 months ago or so now, I had a moment where I felt like I was behind. Some of the things, the milestone moments that I felt like I should have had, I had it, and I was actually beating myself up. So, as a side note, I mentioned this on a podcast the other day, but I don't think we ever fully stop growing and evolving. And I think sometimes our subconscious brain naturally likes to kind of have us believe lies, essentially, no matter how hard you're working on it, which is why it's important to continuously do the work on it. But going back to my story, I had a moment of feeling like I was left behind. And about a week ago, I had been listening to a podcast, and it was a Lewis House podcast, and he was talking about how he started his healing journey at around 30. And things started to fall into place from there. And for me, I literally looked at my mom afterwards. I took a break from the podcast, paused it to go up to her and say, I'm not behind. I'm finally realizing everything happens in divine timing. Because there's so much I've already accomplished, and there's so much I'm still going to accomplish. and everything is happening right on time. And I think it was such a beautiful moment to realize that sometimes we think that we're behind because we haven't had a milestone happen, but it might just be that you're right in line. You're learning the lessons that you're meant to learn at a given point. And going back, I would like to invite you as a listener to go ahead and close your eyes right now and meet her, the version of you who's already on the other side, who's not waiting anymore. She's no longer asking for permission. She's just ready to move. Whatever that movement looks like to you. Maybe that's going on a healing journey. Maybe that's finally owning your voice. But go ahead and say this with me. I rise because I am, and I no longer wait to be chosen. You're not becoming her. You already are her. And what you're actually doing is just remembering your true and authentic self. So, thank you for listening. And let me just be very transparent here. I still sometimes struggle with doubts. I still have days where I want to scream into a pillow. Heck, sometimes I still have days where I actually scream into a pillow. But I'm showing up because building your dream in real time while healing and still holding it together, that's where it's actually the real flex. I want to really take a moment to remind you, as the listener, that sometimes we look at Instagram and we think we see the finished product. But honestly, we're all still learning and growing on this journey. It doesn't matter if you're a multimillionaire successful person who's already living what you consider a dream life, or you're still building your dream life. We all have days where we face our doubts, we face our fears. But the reality is, progress is power. And we don't need perfection. We just need aligned, anchored, and imperfect action while just being honest. So if this spoke to you or your soul, please share it, tag a sister or a friend, and let's begin the ripple. And if you are interested in the show notes, I do have a Arise activation workbook. It's totally free and is waiting for you so that you can step into the version of yourself who's already living your dreams in this beautiful moment right now. Go ahead and download it, let it hold you, and let it walk with you on your beautiful journey. And remember, this is your season. You're not too much or too little. You're not too late. You're right on divine timing. And I'm honored to rise with you.